where do I even begin with this? Everyone was kind of looking to me to kind of like spearhead the whole color-based thing. I was sitting down in front of Logic and just already stressed.
What then can we expect for Chime?
I am happy to answer this question with I don't know. I was hiding behind escapism and have been my entire life. Full proof to myself that I am a music producer and I can do this kind of thing.
Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of the EDM Grid Podcast, the first episode of Season 2. My name is Henry, also known as Henkray, and I'm so incredibly excited to announce that for the first episode of Season 2, I've got on a legendary producer. She has coined the term color bass. She has introduced and explored Microdrops. She has recently also, as well, rebranded to make a new style of UK Dubstep that she has been exploring. Or who knows, possibly in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast, Freya, aka Chime. How are you doing today?
Hello, I'm very good, thank you. That is such a momentous introduction.
I tried.
I'm not used to receiving.
you just
like we're on
expect me to
stage.
go. Oh yeah, no, it's this random producers nobody's ever heard about. You know, it's just someone
Sick,
random
thank
that
you.
I decided to pull up. I actually have quite an interesting first question, and I did message you this, so you should know what's coming.
I should, yes.
Shout out also to my good friend Zeph Parazotto for helping me come up with this question, because I really like it. Just under a year ago, you announced that you would be moving away from color bass into more of a UK dubstep style. And in the announcement video, where you sort of said about how you were moving away, you talk about how Chime to you before evolving the style was more of a form of escapism for you, and that the new Chime style was more grounded in realism. At the same time, you have also been exploring your gender identity, and you have recently come out as trans, which huge congratulations to you for that. My first question to you is, has rebranding helped you explore your gender identity? And if so, how?
Yeah, this is a really great first question, because where do I even begin with this? And I've been trying to figure out how to even answer it as well, because I suppose the answer is kind of yes in some cases. Mostly it's just that I've been changing lots of things in my life. I've gone from, doing a lot of touring of the US and stuff and elsewhere, of course, as well, but kind of mostly the US, to the last time I was over there was 2023, which was the Aetherborne tour with Skybreak. And for a lot of reasons, I have not been back. And so with so much of my identity, I guess, wrapped around touring and when am I going to play my next show and all of this stuff, and my career and my success, or the concept of success there, with that sort of being taken away, it's been a very difficult adjustment to kind of figure out, okay, what the hell am I doing at this point. I was also really overworked in 2023. I was rapidly just advancing towards a crazy burnout, because I was wrapping up the album, which I wanted to do before the tour. I was wrapping that up on the tour, because it kind of leaked into when the tour started. Yeah. And then setting up the release and figuring out all of the release stuff for that, and getting the video thing sorted and the social media posts and stuff. I was still running Rushdown, and I did basically everything at Rushdown, artwork, all of the behind the scenes stuff, even contracts and things, and organizing video teaser stuff and all of that stuff, and all of the social media posts. So I was doing both of those at once.
It sounds like a lot.
I was doing the interdimensional radio with Asora, which was only once a month, but on top of everything else was just brutal.
Straw that broke the camel's back type thing, where you're just working so much.
So many different things.
Yeah.
yeah, and then doing all the stuff that I'm usually doing behind the scenes, like my Patreon stuff and just everything else, and it just became far too much all in one go. And yeah, so like yeah, I changed a lot of things when I got back from that tour, because I was like, a lot of stuff needs to change here. This is not working out for me in any way. And then I feel like I've just gone into a crazy burnout for the past like 3 years or so, which has been leaking into lots of different areas. So yeah, so like, and after, I don't know, 2 years of that, I still didn't feel happy. I still didn't feel like I was on a trajectory that I liked or anything. And I still felt like there was a lot of like unanswered questions about myself and my identity and things. So I wanted to pivot in terms of music, because I was just feeling like I didn't fit into the American dubstep scene at all. In so many ways. Like I fit in with the community that I was able to build through Rushdown and the kind of surrounding artists that were very supportive of that. But alongside creating that community came a lot of like responsibility in terms of like running Rushdown and keeping it going. But also like everyone was kind of looking to me to kind of like spearhead the whole color-based thing. And then we had like a lot of people being really shitty towards us, because Rushdown became a collective of artists that didn't fit neatly into other categories, and so that became a community of a lot of like queer people, like furries, but also like Christians, like the Christian dubstep producers. Like all of the producers that kind of felt a little bit outside the scene ended up in Rushdown, and in some of the most productive and like progressive conversations between like the queer community and Christians has happened through Rushdown that I've ever seen, which is like really lovely, and I'm so crazy. Proud of.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I'm extremely proud of that, but it just became so unsustainable for me because it was just so much. This is a very long preamble to get to the point of like,
it's fine.
I've been spending this time, like these past 3 years, really like figuring out stuff with myself. I like the neurodivergent side is something that I started on, like found out I was autistic, and then ADHD sort of more recently, and then like very recently got a diagnosis of both of those things. And then I was like, there's still something there. There's still something there. Like I knew I wasn't a man because I was kind of in that non-binary space. And I don't know, just like a couple of months ago now, I kind of had that realization, thanks in large part to Danny Demand, who I have been talking to a bunch. And she kind of like talked me through her experience of like figuring it out and stuff, and that resonated heavily with me. So, but the music side of things is just another thing that I've changed, and I think overall it's been a really positive thing for me to step away from like the American dubstep scene in a lot of ways, because I think I was tying myself way too deeply into that, and my sense of self was way too intertwined with what everyone in that scene thought of me and that sort of thing. And that kind of mixed with a lot of like people-pleasing behaviors to be a thing that was just not nice or sustainable. And I would see something that I disliked in the scene and I would be very, very bitter about it, and then I would project a lot of my own sort of discomforts with myself onto that. And so like stepping away from it was a really good idea, and I was kind of like, well, where am I going to go? I was kind of seeing this burgeoning like UK dubstep sound sort of return, and
it was emerging a lot, especially with Skybreak as well. So like me and Skybreak, he kind of took that first step forwards. Like I was very involved with like hearing a lot of the Half Blood tracks before it came out, and so I knew long before like many other people that he was going in that direction, and that was very inspiring to me. It's kind of like a cyclical loop of inspiration between us for that, because
what initially sort of planted the seed for him in terms of going into that style is we were actually hanging out in an Airbnb in North Carolina. It was in Charlotte. On the Aetherborne tour, we were hanging out in Airbnb with Convexity and Kiro, which was lovely because that was like an opportunity to hang out with both of those, both of them in person. And I did like because I'm usually the older one in a group of dubstep producers, so I did like a dubstep history lesson for them, and I kind of even went as far back to like pre-dubstep and sort of like early bass music stuff, so stuff like The Prodigy. I was kind of like showing them tracks from 1998 that just like absolutely...
These were old UK dubstep tracks as well.
Well, the Prodigy is like way even before that. The Prodigy is like very early like bass music, what I would consider like that they kind of pioneered what I would... You know the trope of like a build happening, it's like building, stops, pre-drop vocal, drop happens. Like I think they basically kicked that idea into like hyperdrive with Smack My Bitch Up, because that's what it does. And like I don't really think that was something that was happening. Yeah, oh god, yeah. It's named after like the main sample that's being used. So like I did like a history lesson of like bass music and then into dubstep, like some of the early dubstep stuff. And for Skybreak, I guess that was like some of the first time that he'd heard some of the early stuff and kind of saw my passion around it and was able to understand a bit more about like the vibe of it. Because I was similar, like when it was happening, when I was first getting into music was kind of like 2008-ish.
I was born then. Oh my god.
Yeah, which is nuts. But that's when I was first getting into music, and at that time, dubstep was a lot of it sounded really amateur, especially when I was coming off the back of like drum and bass. Like drum and bass producers were a little bit more refined at that point, and like their mix downs were better and stuff. Yeah, and then dubstep always felt like the scratty little brother to drum and bass for me for a while, and it wasn't until... Dubstep is little bro.
That's such a funny like canon.
So like by the time it got to like 2010 and 2011, and obviously more of like the bro step sound sort of started to come in, that's when that drew me in more. So even though I experienced some of like early dubstep, I didn't really respect it at the time, but now I'm able to kind of go back and understand a lot more of like the intricacies of what made that early style so good, especially now that we have like the modern version of it gaining popularity, because it's like it fixes all of the problems that I had in terms of like mix down and just the general roughness of the style. Now it's like that with modern production, which is great. So I was kind of like, this is the closest thing that I have like an interest in, that is something that I can see working out for me. Let's give this a go. Like, yeah. And
so you think that sort of Chime and like the evolution of UK dubstep has been just a lot of self-reflection and you figuring about about what you want and exploring yourself as alongside it?
Yeah. I think as well it was a desire to get back to the sort of mindset that I had when I was first starting to make music myself, which was around the time when this style was happening, at least like the later years of it. So like, it's I'm a very like nostalgic person, so like I listen to a lot of old music that I was into, and I have been recently as well, just like a lot of old music that when I first got into music and stuff. So I wanted a little bit of that, wanted to sort of reconnect with the person I was then, and to be honest, that was also I suppose that there is a connection in my head between that and like growing my hair out again, because when I was like a teenager, I had like really crazy long hair. And now in hindsight, I kind of know a bit more why. But so
it
like
makes a bit more sense with recent sort of developments why you would have long hair.
Exactly, yeah. So like if you watch the Make 'Em Proud music video, there's a lot of me with long hair at that point. So I guess it's not entirely connected, like the me changing my musical style and the whole like figuring out I'm trans thing, but there are parallels and there are bits where it is somewhat interconnected as they went along. So that's the very long answer of why yes, kind of is the short answer.
Let's talk about then this sort of change in style, because I think it did take a lot of people by surprise to hear that you're moving away from color bass and instead going a lot more into this UK dubstep style. Did rebranding and sort of changing the style also change the way that you approach music?
It did. It did in a very positive way initially, and then in a very negative way shortly after. It was positive initially in the sense that it felt really freeing to step away from always having to appease the American scene in some sense, and very much that either had to be, if you're going for what's popular, that was either like the headbangers or like the wook bass kind of crowd. And I never felt like I fit into either of those really. So you can see me constantly, like if you look through my discography, you can see me constantly compromising and not really. Yeah, like sometimes the challenge of like trying to fit into a certain space is like fun, but it just became just like what am I doing here? Like I don't belong here in any sense. I started getting just like really bitter about everything, just everything to do with career stuff. And because that was so, at the time, interconnected with my idea of my sense of self, it became really overwhelming and sort of toxic and not something that I could sustain. So like as I was changing lots of other things, the style of music and kind of moving myself away from that has been a really positive thing. The negative thing became that I kind of just switched out one mask for another. So whereas I was like trying to appease the like American scene, I just switched it out for trying to appease like the UK dubstep scene or whatever. And that became limiting in exactly the same way. And that's why, I've been through like a big writer's block for such a while. So even though it was initially really freeing to make a completely different style, it then just became the same thing again. So where I'm at now is I'm just making whatever the hell, because I need to just get back into producing anything at all. And
you did
the
say that on an Instagram story as well.
Yeah.
You said that, like, you said, hey, I'm just going to be making whatever the hell I want, especially after Healing Process, where you sort of met a lot of people and sort of made that one song from an Instagram reel with, I think it was Bop, Drinks on Me, and Zelly. That was a really good tune. And then after that, I think there was a moment where you sort of went, I would just want to make whatever the hell I want and see what comes from there. So then what is the future of Chime as a brand? What can we expect from you in the future in terms of the music that you'll be making?
Well, I think it's important to like start on talking a little bit about the writing camp, because that was an opportunity provided to me by Drinks on Me, which was very like gracious of him, and if for people who are listening and not familiar, he throws an event called the Healing Process in London every so often, and he always has a kick-ass theme or idea behind it. And this one was that he got everybody on the lineup into an Airbnb in the north of England, in the middle of nowhere, to write music that would then be debuted at the show. And he even like had t-shirts you could buy with a QR code in the neck lining, which took you to all of the music. As much as completed as we could get it before the show. So you could essentially like buy the music that we made. And so I went to this writing camp with I was pretty scared because like I had no like no work in progress stuff that was really suitable for people to jump on, and I had very low confidence in myself to just come up with ideas on the spot. There's
Doggo
Mochi in the
break.
background.
Doggo!
Yeah. There she is.
It's just sitting in the mirror as well, you can see it.
Yeah. So I went into that being like, I'm not confident in how it was going to go. I also struggle a lot with like in-person collabs because I'm someone that like, I'm very, very meticulous with my production, and I want to fix things in order to hear it properly, to build on top of. Very much like bottom-up thinking. I need to get the foundations in, and then I can start putting stuff on top of that. So, and that doesn't always gel well with other people, and that takes a lot of time when you're in a session with someone for a couple of hours and there's pressure to like make something.
You got to do something quickly because you have only the amount of time that you have together in the studio.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had a lot of anxiety around that. But I think the trick was I was like, okay, for this to work in any way and for me to make anything on this trip, I need to remove all of the other expectations that I'm putting on myself, all of the restraints in terms of it has to be this certain style, it has to appeal to this certain audience, and just go and just make stuff without those restrictions. And as soon as I put that into place, I absolutely loved the ideas that came out of that, and the tracks that I was able to work on with people. And it was just really enjoyable, and it sort of really unlocked my ability to just sit down at Logic and just make stuff again. Whereas before I was sitting down in front of Logic and just already stressed, just like already like I have to make something perfectly fitting into this pigeonhole,
or else it's going to be horrible and no one will like
exactly.
it.
And like
that sort of thing.
That's why I changed style to begin with, to get away from that exact feeling.
But then you still felt it afterwards.
Yeah, like initially I had the initial burst of like, ooh, this is really new and I can be more creatively free in this space. But then I filled up that space very quickly and wanted to do weird stuff that was slightly outside of that space. And now it's just like, I feel like the answer is to just make whatever the hell, at least for a bit, so that I can regain my momentum in terms of music production, and then maybe focus in a little bit more gently into a certain area, and that might be back into like more of the UK style. I still want to like explore that a bunch, but for me right now, like psychologically, like not being able to produce music was like not a good thing for my mental health, because a lot of my enjoyment of life comes through music production. Yeah. And so I was just like, okay, I just need to make whatever the hell, and that's kind of what I've been doing. I mean, a lot of what I've been working on has been finishing up a lot of the ideas from the writing camp, a lot of which are very outside of either of my styles, you know. But that's kind of the fun of it, and that's why it's enjoyable and new to me. And also, like, to tie this into another thing, me recognizing that I'm ADHD, that was a harder realization for me than it was for like my autistic side. I resonated more with that. I identified more with the autistic side. The ADHD side was more of the stuff that I was very judgmental to myself about. And like accepting that, and accepting that I do have a brain that requires more stimulus and more dopamine. I just accepting that I'm a dopamine seeking person and I need novelty more than I thought. has really helped me sort of tap into this idea of like I should just be making whatever the hell. Like I'm suppressing a part of myself by restraining what I'm allowed to make, you know. So there's a lot of ties psychologically into like a lot of the realizations I've had about myself over the past like year or so.
A lot of self-discovery both in music and outside of music.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what then can we expect for Chime? Is it just a lot of fresh, new concepts that perhaps not really heard before, but still interesting?
I'm happy to answer this question with I don't know, in a way that I wouldn't have been before, because, I used to be the sort of person that would need a plan and would need like an obvious direction. And now I'm just like, I'm setting off on a journey and we'll see what happens on the way. And I'm much more comfortable with that now. I mean, fundamentally, I would like to play more shows in the UK and stuff and get into that scene. But I'm finding releasing the tension to make that happen is a very good thing for my head. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
We will see.
I may end up like going back to some more UK stuff. I mean, I've got more sort of UK flavored stuff in the works, and I've got collabs that I need to definitely need to finish with people more in that scene and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. We'll just kind of see what happens.
So from the future now, I want to talk about your color-based side, because there has been a lot since you've been on a podcast a while ago that has happened. Specifically, your album, Aetherborne, incredible album.
Thank you.
I really like it. In the announcement video, talking about your rebrand, you specifically mentioned the album, saying how it was about a sort of ideal fiction world, and in the middle of writing it, you changed the ending so that it was more of a cautionary tale about, you know, not delving deeper into this world. And in the releases immediately afterwards, there was a very clear shift towards personal releases, and you mentioned it before about Make 'Em Proud as being sort of a very personal release, where and Between as well, the cover art as well has a young Chime in it. What led to this sort of change in yourself? Was it again about sort of exploring your own self and realizing that you wanted to be more in touch with yourself? Was this a conscious thing?
Yeah, it was a conscious thing. It's all very interesting in hindsight. Yeah, because with Aetherborne, I recognized that I was hiding behind escapism and have been my entire life, which makes so much sense now. But and that's what I was doing. It was like, as a kid, as a coping mechanism, I lent heavily on video games and just like escaping the real world by just playing video games and things. And I got so obsessed with that it became like the virtual worlds that were created in video games became felt more real to me than real life. And now that makes so much sense in hindsight, because my real life was clouded in a lot of dysphoria and in a lot of feeling very, very out of place because of my neurodivergence that I didn't know about. Like, all of these discoveries allow me to reanalyze a lot of my old memories of my life with
it makes a lot more sense
multiple new lenses. It makes so much sense now. And so like Aetherborne was started as just like what happens if I just lean entirely into escapism? Like, what would my perfect world look like? What would that perfect virtual world, what would happen in it, you know? And as I was making it, I started to recognize that it was not healthy. And I was specifically leaning on that to avoid interacting with my own brain, my own life,
confronting the things that you might be uncomfortable with.
Exactly, yeah. My own existence in the universe that is, as far as we know, real. Like, so it's like, yeah, and I recognized how dangerous that was, and so the ending changed from this just like journey through the thing, like the anxiety within me, what was wrong with me, followed my character into the world and became a problem, because the idea being, and became the final boss of the sort of like video gamey world that I created. Yeah. Because what else would be the final boss but the completely unanswered question? The unanswered question. There's so many ties. I need to replay Celeste like very soon, because there's so many ties to like that, and the two sides of a person and all that sort of thing. Like yeah, so that just made total sense to me. And then like, because it's supposed to be a perfect world, my character like defeats that and then gets the big prize and whatever. And like, but I knew deep down that I hadn't answered the problem. I hadn't beaten the boss. I knew I was still unhappy in some sense. Yeah. In many senses. So I was like, I can't in my right mind finish this album and put it out. Like, I've done it, I've figured it out, because there was still so much I needed to figure out about myself, and I knew somehow subconsciously that I hadn't figured it out yet. And so I was like, okay, maybe what I'll do is I will create an infinite loop of the album where my character becomes the thing that called my character into the world to begin with,
it's an infinite
and
cycle.
It just infinitely loops. That's why at the end there's like the dialogue in like Aether speak, as like the fans have called it.
Question mark.
Yes, of like, whoa, I'm still here. I'm not supposed to be still here, and yeah, and then you translate it, and it's like, oh fuck, and then becomes like help, and that becomes the sound that at the start of the album draws my character into the machine in the first place. And I left it completely unresolved because I knew within myself that it was unresolved.
You were unresolved.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that the shift into more like real world branding in terms of like using like pictures of my old self and stuff was me like effectively going, okay, I know being in the machine and the endless loop of that is going to just prevent me from finding the actual answers. So let me step away from that and do stuff like Bring Me Back, which was actually released like a year before the album as I was writing it, and release stuff where it's just a picture of me or something from the past, like, because that was, again, with hindsight, that was me looking for the answers, being like, okay, what's going on? What is going on here? Like, yeah, and Make 'Em Proud was like a really big part of that, I think, which was the year after, 2024, of me being like, I need to, okay, that's an interesting thing. That's good. Yeah.
Stream it now. Shout out Dan and Matt, go watch that episode.
Yeah. So I knew that with Make 'Em Proud, I was like, okay, I still have a lot of like self-hatred from this period in my life. Let's go back to it. Let's explore it. Let's write music about it. Let's reconnect with that person and start forgiving that person for, I don't know, the crimes of being like 15 years old or whatever. Like, yeah. And so that's why I like started doing more sort of like introspective stuff in general, just to find the answer. And then like, I figured out a load of shit about myself. That's where I'm at now.
Then you can sort of look back at it and go, wow, that makes like a lot of sense why I was doing that. I want to go back to Aetherborne because that is just a huge project with, you know, so much innovation in sound design. I said before I could talk about Intermolecular Lullaby for so long and that sound design. What did you learn from making that album, which is just so huge that you have been able to take into future projects and take into other projects? And sort of what did you learn from doing that?
In terms of like specific production stuff, or more just like what I learned from the
what
process?
You learned from making it.
Oh, okay. I suppose that what's been useful for me, especially like in the recent writer's block, is like being able to listen back to Aetherborne and go, oh, I made this. Like I made really complicated, difficult stuff, and some of the like challenges I took on making Aetherborne has been really useful proof to myself that I am a music producer and I can do this kind of thing. I mean, the title track, Aetherborne, I did something that I've never heard before, which is where the track goes, gradually automates the entire tempo of the track from like 110 BPM or something up to like 999 BPM.
Oh my gosh.
But with a continuous beat that's developing and with drums that are evolving over the course of that. Like that is a really difficult thing to make, but I made it. And so being able to listen back to it and also like to tie in concepts and themes into that. So like the reason why that happened was because it was supposed to the reason why I included that was because it was supposed to represent as your life goes on, because you've experienced more of your life, a year becomes a smaller increment of your entire life in contrast.
Relativity.
And therefore that's kind of why time feels like it's going faster and faster and faster. Yeah. And that's sort of like just before death, like flashback thing. And so like it goes from really slow to like as fast as my door would allow. And then I flash like basically every Chime release. I flash a tiny little piece of it like from left and right until it gets to like the point where it's like you're done. And that's really cool. I'm really proud of that because it's like it's really hard and it ties into the theme, and I've never heard anyone else do that before. So like what Aetherborne's taught me is that when I am unrestricted, because I try to be as unrestricted as possible, and I tried to not cater to anyone when I made Aetherborne. I can make really cool stuff, and it's stuff that means a lot to me. I did
Thumbs
that
up
again. So that's kind of the main takeaway for me, I think.
You said you really liked Into the Machine, but I also wanted to know, in terms of all your older color-based releases, or even sort of before you were in color-based, are there any releases that you still listen to and go, I really, really like that. I really, really liked what I did with that?
Yeah. So again, it's like the main ones that I am able to listen back to, and they feel the most like me, and I can feel that I'm not catering to anyone else when I made them. Those are the ones that I am most proud of, because I can listen back to a lot of my old music and I can remember the mindset I was in, and I was like, I was trying to kind of like slot into this category, or like appease these people with this, or whatever. But it's the tracks that I made purely for myself that are the ones that always kind of stand the test of time for me. So that's like Make It Proud is one of those. Between is kind of one of those. And I guess they're more recent. Let me pull up my discography.
There's a lot of songs.
Lost Limerence is another one where it's just like that was complete creative freedom. I suppose that there's like a tinge of me trying to like hop on the color based wave that I create. I don't know. What else? I mean, going all the way back to 2016, I think that the furthest you can go back and find a track that I'm still really proud of and like happy to even like play out, I guess, is Hole with Adam Tell, which is like 10 years ago now. But that one I think is great, in large part because of Adam Tell and him being brilliant as well. I still really like Father with Sakai from must have been 2017. And any of the tracks that I carried forward for Aetherborne are those kind of tracks as well. Like Starstorm was one of those where I was just like, this feels very me, at least at the time. And then really from that point onwards, there's a lot of tracks that, again, I can feel are slotting into certain categories. So like Experience Points EPs, the Circus EPs, I was trying to like find a midpoint between what I wanted to make and what would fit like the Circus sound. And same sort of thing with like the later Firepower EPs. I was still trying to like make heavier stuff that would go well with like their audience. And then it's like Sherwood. I took that forward for Aetherborne. So these are the ones that really stand out to me and feel very I don't know. They're the ones that I'm like proudest of.
You most resonate with.
Yeah. Again, Bloom. That's another one I took forward because it just felt completely outside of the realm of things. So these are kind of the main ones. And I'm at a point now where I kind of just want to make those kind of tracks, like
tracks for yourself and not tracks.
Yeah,
for
entirely
people.
For myself. Yeah. At least for a bit, you know. Yeah.
Well, you have also been known to be a very experimental producer. You've pushed the boat out so much with the color-based stuff, and with sort of your sound design techniques. And another way that you have done that is through Microdrops, which is another very, very big thing that you've sort of experimented with. Intermolecular Lullaby. I mentioned that track so much. I love it. Seen in also just so many other songs that you have made. What was the process of, how did you come up with that? Especially the Phosphor Micrology A-B, that was a very fun listen. How did you come up with Microdrops? Sure,
I mean, I certainly didn't, I certainly wasn't the first person to do something that I would call a microdrop. It was mostly inspired by Bop, who created his own sort of subgenre called micro funk, like all the way back, at least as early as I know, in 2008. He released an album called... Why am I blanking on this album name? Good Lord. 1 second. This is like such a pivotal album for me. Oh, Clear Your Mind, of course. Clear Your Mind in 2009.
Yeah.
Which I came across again in that very introductory period for me in terms of music and stuff. So, and that album was like nothing I'd ever heard before, in the sense that it came from the drum and bass world, but was as tiny as possible. Like, instead of these full, thick, punchy drums, like the first track, the drums are just like the tiniest little clicks, with these long pads. So it kind of takes the rhythms from drum and bass, combines it with like IDM and ambient music to create something really, really unique and interesting. So that was kind of when I was initially introduced to like the micro idea. And then there were a number of other tracks that had like anti-drops. A big one Camo and Crooked started doing this sort of style again in more in the drum bass realm. I'm blanking on like all the names of everything right now. All Night by Camo and Crooked had the biggest build up to drop into this tiny little just this little plucky thing, and I thought when I first heard it I was like,
that's weird.
Yeah. And then I listened to it again and I was like, no, there's something here about this. There's something really interesting about setting the expectations so high and then subverting them so much. That was really interesting to me. And so, yeah, when I was kind of just exploring other stuff in like 2024 after Aetherborne, I suppose I'd already done some micro stuff through Aetherborne in terms of Intermolecular Lullaby, and Chrysalism was supposed to be basically just like a microfunk track in the style of bop, but as me, I suppose. But Intermolecular Lullaby, because I wanted to explore the idea of scale and size and something that's very small, and like the idea that you look at the tiniest molecules and things and they start to look like how the biggest scale universe stuff looks like, and the idea that what if that just repeats? What if like you get to the smallest scale and that becomes just like the universe again and then expands? So this kind of like continuously looping scaling vibe was something I wanted to explore with that, because that track is all about, I mean, my fear of death and general existentialism, and that's certainly a concept that gives me that fear. So I was kind of like, I want it to sound like you are between molecules. Like, how would I do that? So I ended up adopting a lot of like the sort of microfunk stuff, but in more of a at least 150
format,
yeah. And then I was so like branching off that for like Phosphor and Micrology, I wanted to do like a sort of color bass / like bro step coded or dubstep coded take on what bop did with drum and bass. And drawing from some other elements, like Eliminate was already kind of doing a thing like that but more in like the sort of hybrid trap sort of space. So I just wanted to explore that really, and then I had a bunch of dumb ideas for like the promo of me being in a lab coat.
That video was so fun.
And I think it was 2 years ago, like the other day that came out. Because it like came up on my like TikTok on this day thing.
9th of August, 2 days ago as of recording.
There you go. So I just went nuts on the concept of that, and then that kind of had a little bit of a thing where people, it felt like a new concept to a lot of people, and so people were trying out stuff, and back on Twitter when it was Twitter and when it was a reasonable platform to use.
Of course.
It never was really.
True.
People started posting a bunch of their own like microdrops and stuff, and it became its own little thing. I don't know. It's just a cool thing.
It's just something that you experimented with.
Yeah, and like as I've moved into like the UK dubstep style of things, there's a lot of crossover there as well in terms of like because it's so much lower energy in a lot of cases to like brostep and like the Americanized version of dubstep. It means that I can use a lot of my skills that I developed from like microdrop stuff to kind of do a similar vibe in UK dubstep that's quite unique and interesting. So yeah.
Well, similar to Micrology and to Phosphor, there is another song that you released that has a microdrop and also has an incredibly funny video, and it is with our good friend Temanite.
Oh yeah, well, kind of, yeah.
Episode dropping in 2 weeks. Duckstep. What?
Yeah.
What was the thought that led to that song? Because it's so silly. How?
So I introduced Temanite and his crew that were. I introduced him to. No, it was even before that. It was way before that. I think, it might have been like 2022 or something. I don't know. Our tours aligned at one point where we were both in LA, and I introduced him to Duck Game, which is one of the only like couch multiplayer games that I actually play. And it's a game where you are ducks and you pick up guns and shoot each other. That's kind of it. But it is excellent for couch multiplayer and general just chaos and fun. And it immediately resonated with Sam because he enjoys chaos and fun and ducks.
Yeah, sounds like him.
And the general goofy vibe and the fact that there's a button permanently mapped to do nothing of use other than just quack. This was all just like kid in a candy store stuff for Sam, or Temanite in an ice cream store. If you know his ice cream vibes, he really likes ice cream. You should definitely ask him about that.
Okay, I'm
when
writing
you record
that
your
down.
thing. So I introduced that to him, and then we had a couple years later we had our tours collide at a different point, and we ended up in an Airbnb, I think again like outside LA, where him and his crew that he brought along with him, we just played so much Duck Game, and at that point they'd started making like custom levels. In fact, there is a video of us playing Duck Game.
Yes, I was watching that earlier. I was thinking that it was like he made a like tour of his Raise a Black Flag, and then it was just a video of you playing it, and I was watching that earlier. That's so funny that's the inspiration that then led to Duckstep.
So it was in that Airbnb that he started making a sort of like Duck Game themed intro, at least, and he used it in the video because he wanted just to make his own music for that. But also we were like, we should just make this into a Duck Game themed collab because that would be ridiculous and fun. And then we like sat on it for ages, or maybe it was on me for ages, and I was constantly like going back to it and trying to find like the perfect duck bass sound. And I just couldn't for ages. And then Sam made a patch that was really, really good and really like usable and workable and stuff. And I'm like, send me that. I'm going to make the whole drop right now because And then I like messed around with all the macros and stuff, and basically built out like the whole first drop. And then from there, he just added stuff like the duck choir, where he recorded his own like wah, wah, and stuff. And we took the concept of doing a Duck Game themed dubstep track as far as it could and as ridiculous as it could possibly go. And he's just the perfect person to do that with because he is so willing to just go in on the goofiness as much as possible. And so like second drop, I was like, it'd be really funny if we did like a Microdrop sort of thing where it just became this little tiny little duck. And that ended up working, and it just kind of flourished from there into this ridiculous
and
thing.
Also Geometry Dash, it is an official Geometry Dash event level as well, which it was also quite fun. I remember playing it and I was just thinking, what the hell, it's so goofy, and I really enjoyed playing it. It's quite funny how, the goofiest song ended up with the Geometry Dash level as well, which
it makes it's so themed. That's the thing. Like you can really go to town with a duck themed like Geometry Dash level. So that I guess that's what they did, Yeah.
Well, we have nearly gotten to the end of recording, and now's your time to go, wow, that went by so quickly. Oh my God. Before we go, season 1 had a ending of episode ritual that I'm bringing back for season 2. What current songs are you really digging right now? What is some of your favorite tracks and favorite tunes and favorite artists and albums that you're currently really liking?
Okay. I actually have really good answers for this because after a long period of just not being able to listen to music, which is a weird thing to go through, like not being able to enjoy music is very strange for a music producer as well. I've been getting way the hell back into music, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah, big times. I've kind of been playlisting things based on like the past couple of months. So in June, I was on I got back into Bill Wirtz massively. You might know him, maybe not as a musician, but as the guy who
video
did the
stuff. The sun is a deadly laser and all of that
history
stuff.
of the entire world, I guess, and stuff. But I greatly prefer his music. I mean, they're great, those videos as well, but his music is ridiculous. And I had a huge phase of getting into Bill Wirtz in like 2019, actually 2020. And then he just didn't release for so long. And I think it was because he released Off the Map, like his most recent song. It made me realize that he's released like a ton of new songs. So I got like crazy back into Bill Wirtz, listened to all the new stuff in June. Alongside, I was also listening back to Danny Bird a lot. Danny Bird with a Y, was when I was like making drum and bass initially when I started producing, was basically my favorite drum and bass artist. And I've been kind of searching for music that has that like really just joyful, wholesome vibe. And in the field of drum and bass, Danny Bird is like one of the big ones I would point to for that. In particular, his Rave Digger album is like one of my favorite albums of all time. Lots of like, it's another one where it's like, it's an album of great music that is also kind of like a rave history lesson in a sense. He uses like a lot of old samples from old rave music, and he literally Rave Digger dug out old synthesizers that like the Prodigy would use, and very early like rave artists, and all these like classic sounds to kind of re-sculpt into an album that came out in, I think, 2010, which was 2011, which was again like a really pivotal time for me getting into music and getting into production as well. So Danny Bird, been listening to a lot. I also around this time like a lot of ambient stuff and piano stuff. I've gotten really into like Elijah Fox, who is kind of again does like both ambient stuff and piano stuff. What else have I got in here? Oh yeah, I was listening back to Aetherborne as well, because I got a couple of the tracks in here and kind of reassessing it with new information.
Of course.
Yeah.
If you want more ambient songs, also check out the EDM Grid album out now.
Absolutely,
Of course.
Yeah,
of course.
I mean, I was telling you, like, I'm way into like more chill stuff a lot of the time, because I basically constantly have music on while I'm doing anything now. July, I got way back into Tennyson, which is again one of my favorite artists of all time. In particular, It's Idea! by Tennyson. For whatever reason, that track just absolutely infiltrated my brain. But also the Dolphin album is just ridiculous. And again, going through the backlog of like old Tennyson tracks and getting back into that. Again, also like listening to a lot of Adam Tell's stuff. Like, he's a good friend that is like, again, one of my favorite producers of all time. And then Laxity, which is another artist I've been in touch with, and like we used to live like 5 minutes down the road from each other in Sheffield, but we've never met in person because we'd like planned to meet. Exactly. We're planning on making that happen now, but we planned to meet up, and then we just never made it happen. And then the pandemic happened while we were in Sheffield, and we couldn't see each other in person. So it was like, oh fuck. I got really into Laxity, and then I'm like getting way back into the Chemical Brothers as well. Another artist that I was like really into, like very early days in terms of me getting into music production and stuff. Also, I'm trying to like put in a bit more like modern releases. I've been getting into like Names Bliss, who's like a grime artist, and in particular I really like his stuff with Screws as the producer. And I've been listening to the new Lockers album as well. I have a collab with Lockers that is forthcoming, and that's really good, sort of like garage stuff. So there's a big mix of stuff I've been listening to.
Speaking of stuff that we'll be expecting, now's the time for you to shout out any projects. This is your time to say whatever you want. If you want to shout out anyone, if you want to point to your dog and say, "Go, here's my dog. He's cute."
She's just done. Right. She's just done over there.
Now's your time to shout out any future projects, any past projects. Say whatever you want. Shout out whoever you want. This is your time at the end of the episode.
I mean, I'm not really in a crazy plugging mood at the moment. I don't know. Shout out Danny Demand for helping me to realize I'm trans.
Shout out Danny.
Yeah, both as like huge representation of what a transition looks like to me, however subconscious that was, and also for talking me through it and just helping me sort of fully realize it for myself. Shout out Danny.
Well, I will then take the honor of shouting you out. Go listen to Chime stuff right now. She is so good. She is, such an unreal producer, someone I've looked up to for years. If you aren't already, which no one is probably who hasn't heard of you, but if you haven't, go check out her stuff. It's very good. But that's about it. That's all she wrote for today. It has been incredibly fun having you and speaking to you for the past hour and more, as we've been sort of yapping as well about general stuff. Once again, my name is Henry, also known as Hank Ray. Shout out to Freya, aka Chime, and we'll see you in the next episode.